$7.99. This is available in PlayStation Plus Premium, but that is the top tier subscription service. I don't know how many of you guys want to take advantage of that. Nonetheless, Wipeout Omega Collection is a fantastic futuristic arcade racer. It's unfortunate that Wipeout for a long time was a franchise that Sony would go back to and release new titles of. It looks like it's going to go completely to the wayside, which is a bummer because while Gran Turismo offers a great racing sim experience, an arcade racing title is still something I feel like is missing from Sony's library as far as exclusives go, and Wipeout was a great one. Omega Collection has a lot of content, great soundtrack, great visuals, and it's a lot of fun to play. It's also low-key got one of the best VR components that's available on the platform. Hopefully they somehow carry that over to VR too. It'd be a bummer if this is just forgotten about from a VR standpoint, but nonetheless, Wipeout Omega Collection is great. And this price point is a very, very good pickup if you're remotely into racing games, arcade racers at that. Next up, we have The Last of Us Part 2. Look, I've been pretty vocal about my opinions of Last of Us Part 2, but the reality remains that there are a lot of people that like the game, and I ultimately think, like, people like me that, like, hate on Last of Us Part 2, I don't really hate on it. I just am pretty open about the fact that I didn't enjoy the game as much as the first one, to an extreme degree, mainly because of the narrative. But when you look at the general consensus, I do believe I'm in the vocal minority. There's a lot of people that talk about Last of Us Part 2 being a bad game and etc, etc. From a technical standpoint and a gameplay standpoint, it's a well-made game. It's a well-designed game. It's just like what really turned me off was the narrative, and to me that was the biggest aspect of Last of Us, so that is a big bummer. But you know, most people did enjoy this game. Let's be real here. Most people did enjoy the game. It's just like people that were upset by the game are gonna be a little bit more vocal, as I have been. I am, you know, I feel like I'm objective enough to realize that. That's why Last of Us Part 2 at $9.99, I think it's a decent pickup. And most of you guys probably will end up really enjoying it. Surprisingly, this isn't available in PlayStation Plus Extra or Premium. I mean, obviously it'd be in Plus Extra, but nonetheless, maybe they're gonna remaster the game or remake the game, quote-unquote, again, just like Part 1. I don't really know what you can do to Part 2 to make it more technically impressive, but nonetheless, $9.99 is a good buy here. Next up, we have Star Ocean, The Last Hope 4K and a Full HD Remaster. This is a good JRPG, you know? We just had the release of Star Ocean, The Divine Force, and I enjoyed that game as well. It's just a little bit pricey right now at $42. I would say if you haven't played the Star Ocean titles, go back and play The Last Hope. It's a pretty decent JRPG. The story isn't blow away by any stretch of the imagination, but it's pretty decent. The gameplay, I think, is solid. You know, it shows its age. It came out like early 2008 or early 2009, so obviously it's a little bit older of a JRPG, but still a pretty decent one. And $8.39, I think, is pretty good. The environments in this game also have quite a bit of variety, so $8.39, not a bad pickup here. Next up, for those of you looking for a quality co-op game to play over your holiday break, A Way Out is a really good option. 80% off at $6. This is, of course, done by Hazelight, who has become pretty notable for their work on co-op focused titles. A Way Out, It Takes Two. A Way Out is the much cheaper option when it comes to their titles. It Takes Two still goes for like $15, but A Way Out is still a really good game. Sure, on the shorter side for sure, but if you want a game you can get in, have a good time with a friend, and then, you know, move on to the next game, A Way Out is going to give you exactly that. A lot of twists and turns as far as the narrative goes, and very much enjoyable. $6, I think, is a great buy, so go check that out. Next up, an underrated game here, Mark of the Ninja Remaster. I remember when this game came out as a downloadable title on Xbox and PC, I want to say. It never saw like a PlayStation 3 release, which this is when the era this game dropped. It's an action stealth platformer, and it's actually really well done. The art style is great, and while this remastered version doesn't, like, you know, it's not like a grandiose refinement to the game, it's pretty decent, and the game already had a good art style that's aged really well. You do have some additional DLC in there, some audio refinements. $9 for Mark of the Ninja Remaster, I think, is a great deal if you do like action stealth experiences. You're gonna get exactly that. Maybe you can look at that $9 price tag as a little pricey. Maybe it should be $5. I don't know. I think it's a good buy, so go check it out. Next up, another JRPG, Ni no Kuni 2 Revenant Kingdom, 85% off for $9. Very good JRPG here, albeit I did not enjoy it as much as Ni no Kuni 1. Ni no Kuni 2 is still a solid game with a fantastic art style, great soundtrack. Gameplay didn't really click with me as much as Ni no Kuni 1. It's still fine, but you know, that aspect of the game did hold it down, but story-wise, it was pretty good. $9, I think, is a great price. It's a lengthy game, so you're getting your money's worth from a value standpoint, so go check it out. Next up, Zone of the Enders, the second runner, Mars, 80% off for $6. Look, you guys know me. I'm a sucker for mecha action titles. That's why I am so excited for Armored Core 6, but circling back to Zone of the Enders, this is a little bit of an older title, but this is a remake of Zone of the Enders 2, so that's good. Still has that over-the-top mecha action gameplay. Like, Zone of the Enders is kind of wacky at times, but man, that's kind of the charm of the game as well. It's pretty wild from a story standpoint, but $6. If you're a big mecha fan like I am, our options are pretty limited as far as quality mecha action titles, and, you know, there are mecha games. There's, like, Gundam, the multiplayer title that just dropped, the name is escaping me, but that's not, like, the mecha title I think a lot of us want. We want that single-player, big-budget action title. Zone of the Enders, I wouldn't really say is big budget at this stage of the game, but while you wait for Armored Core 6, Zone of the Enders will offer you some pretty solid gameplay. Next up, another great co-op title, Castle Crashers Remastered, is such a good game to play, and really has that holiday spirit to it. So I feel like if you want to, again, another game to play over that holiday break, gather around with friends and family, Castle Crashers is a game that offers you that kind of fun. This is a game you absolutely do not play solo. It is like 1/10 of the experience playing solo. Like, there are a lot of games that have a co-op aspect, and it's fine to do co-op or solo. This is a game you have to play co-op. Like, there is no single player. Just pretend the single player doesn't exist, because, it's so much more fun gathering around with friends, having a good time, and playing this game cooperatively. That's why it's just aged so well, because that fun factor hasn't dissipated at all, and it's still got that cartoony look. Like, back in 2009 or whatever when this came out, it was still that same cartoony look. It was still that cartoony art style that people liked, and people are still gonna like that to this day, because it's got a pretty unique look to it. $7.49 if you want a co-op title for 4 players. This is as good as it gets. Next up, Fallout 4 Game of the Year Edition, 75% off for $9.99. Now, to be perfectly honest, this was one of the more disappointing games of the PS4 generation, and that's probably because the expectations were so sky high. Like, after the success of Fallout 3 in New Vegas, Fallout 4 was admittedly gonna have an absurd amount of hype that was gonna be, unfortunately, like, impossible to live up to. Fallout 4 still turned out to be a pretty good game. This definitely gotta go with the Witcher 3 route here. If you have a PS5, wait for the PS5 upgrade to drop, because one of the limitations of Fallout 4 was from a technical standpoint. I mean, that's just gonna be the case with Bethesda titles, but doubly so for Fallout 4. It was really handcuffed in that regard, but yeah, it's a good game. Definitely very short if you rush through it. Story isn't that blow away, but it's interesting enough. Has a lot of content. Game of the Year Edition has the bonus content, the DLC content, which I wasn't that big of a fan of some of it, but, you know, you get it for $9.99. Again, wait for the PS5 upgrade, and I don't know if they're gonna go the Witcher 3 route, where it's, you know, they're gonna price gouge it once the upgrade drops, so maybe if you're interested, pick this one up as soon as possible. Next up, another RPG, this one of a different sort, a historical RPG in Kingdom Come Deliverance Royal Edition, 80% off for $7.99. Man, this is a great price for KCD, which is a really good, more realistic historical RPG. It's got a great setting, a pretty solid story. I mean, kind of generic as far as the setup goes, but $7.99 for the base game as well as all the DLC is really good. This is a game that I think would resonate more so with the PC audience, based on, you know, some of the aspects to the game I think would be more associated with PC, but it is challenging, so bear that in mind. But $7.99 for all the content you're getting, I think, is a great buy, so go check that out. Batman Arkham Collection, 85% off for $9. Like, this is just a disgustingly good deal if you've never played the Batman Arkham games or you're looking to revisit them. Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, and Arkham Knight Premium Edition. You get all the bonus content across all 3 games, and all 3 games are really good. A lot of people think Arkham Knight is the best. A lot of people think Asylum is the best. I personally think City is the best, but really, that goes to show how good all 3 games really are. I know Arkham Knight, the issue a lot of people had with it was from the Batmobile sections. I mean, it is what it is. I didn't hate it as much as some other people. Definitely weaker than your traditional Batman Arkham gameplay, but you're talking about a massive open world to explore in Arkham Knight, a big open world in Arkham City, and more of a contained world in Arkham Asylum. But yeah, great games all in all, and for $9 to get all 3, it's just a steal of a deal, and I would strongly recommend it. Next up, Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, 60% off for $7.99. A lot of the times when we see RE7 go on sale, it'll be $9.99, so $2 cheaper. I'd say this is a very good buy. This kind of got Resident Evil back on track for a lot of people. After Resident Evil 6 wasn't that great of a game, at least from a Resident Evil fan standpoint, Resident Evil 7 really brought it back to its survival horror elements while still maintaining an aura to it that was engaging to newer players. This is a game that also has a really good VR component if you do want to utilize that. Like, I had a friend play it, and they just absolutely bugged out at the VR component, but they're very much a casual, so it was fine. Yeah, go check it out. $8 is really good. The Gold Edition is on sale for $16. That includes Not a Hero as well in the Gold Edition, so $16 for that isn't bad. Next up, we got Dishonored 2, 80% off for $6. I always talk up Dishonored. I just think it's a great action-adventure stealth game. I mean, you don't have to play it stealthy, but that's probably the more rewarding and satisfying way to play the game. Dishonored 2 has 2 playable characters as well, so a bit of replayability in that regard. Yeah, enjoyable game, a varied gameplay, a lot of different abilities to utilize and whatnot. And $6, I think, is a good price for a game with a really good story. Hopefully they do Dishonored 3 at some point, but you won't be playing that on PlayStation, as Bethesda is now owned by Microsoft. But nonetheless, there you go with that. Next up, do want to give a shout to Injustice 2 Legendary Edition, 85% off for $9. So I mentioned Injustice 2, the base game, when we talked about games under $3, but the Legendary Edition does include a ton of bonus content, all downloadable content characters. That's 10 additional characters and 5 premier skins as well on top of the base game, which Injustice 2 is a pretty engaging fighting game, which I think, you know, even more casual fighting game fans can get into, and I am very much a casual fighting game fan, so it was more so up my alley. But yeah, I'm not a big DC guy either, so if you're a big DC guy, you're gonna enjoy this game even more so than me. So $9 for that, quite good. And then lastly, Wolfenstein 2 The New Colossus Digital Deluxe Edition for 85% off for $9. That's a banger of a deal. That includes Wolfenstein 2, all 3 DLC packs as well, so you're getting your money's worth out of this one. An over-the-top first-person shooter. Wolfenstein does get wacky and zany for sure, but I still find the story pretty engaging, and overall the gameplay is really, really good. Be nice if we got a full-on PS5 upgrade for this game, but what can you do? You can't get upgrades for everything, I get that, but nonetheless, 85% off for $9. Great buy here. Definitely check that out if you're looking for a single-player first-person shooter. And that is going to do it for me. As always, links to all of these deals will be in the description box below. Check them out.